Captain Teo stood in the corner of the massive council chamber, his human eyes moving slowly across the room. The space was enormous, with high ceilings that stretched so far up they seemed to touch the clouds. Around a long, curved table sat representatives from 17 different alien species. Each one was strange and different. Some had many eyes, some had no eyes at all. A few looked almost like humans, but with skin colors that nature never made on Earth. Teo had arrived at Nexus Station 3 weeks ago. He was the first human military officer ever invited to attend the Galactic Council meeting. It was an honor, but also a heavy responsibility. Earth was still new to the galactic community. Many older species still saw humans as children, interesting but not important. Teo wanted to change that opinion. Next to him stood Dr. Minnie, a young woman with sharp eyes and sharper mind. She was a xenobiologist, which meant she studied alien life and how different species worked. She had been studying the council members for days, taking notes and asking questions. Her notebook was already filled with observations. The meeting today was about predators. The council was trying to figure out which species in the galaxy were the most dangerous. This was important work. If they understood which creatures posed the greatest threat, they could prepare defenses and keep the peace. A tall figure with 4 arms stood up. This was Krell, a Centaurian diplomat. The Centaurians were proud warriors. They believed their species was superior to most others because they had been soldiers for thousands of years. Krell's voice was loud and confident. "The hierarchy is clear," Krell announced, pointing to a large chart behind him. The chart showed different predator species ranked by size and strength. The largest and strongest creatures were at the top. The apex predators are obvious: the Krelthar, the Vex Swarm, the Solian warrior caste. These are the creatures that dominate through pure physical power. These are the only ones we must truly fear. A smaller alien with patterns of light flowing across its skin spoke next. This was Vex, from the Quillian species. The Quillians were obsessed with logic and numbers. They believed everything could be understood through mathematics. "Agreed," Vex said in a voice like wind chimes. "I have calculated the probability data. Physical strength correlates with 87% of successful predatory encounters. Size matters. Speed matters. Natural weapons matter. The emotional component is irrelevant." Other council members nodded. They seemed satisfied with this analysis. The meeting was calm and orderly. Different species made comments, but all of them seemed to accept the basic idea. The most dangerous creatures were the ones that were the biggest, the strongest, and the most naturally violent. Teo watched and listened. He felt Minnie shift beside him. She was taking notes faster now. Her pen was moving across the page with quick, sharp movements. He could see her frown slightly. She was thinking about something. She was thinking hard. The debate continued for another hour. Various species added their own rankings to the list. A representative from the peaceful Viridians suggested that large herbivores should not be considered threats at all. A member of the Sulian military caste, a species that bred warriors for thousands of years, argued that size was less important than training and experience. But Krell shut down that argument quickly. "Training!" He laughed, a sound like thunder. "Training is irrelevant to this discussion. We are talking about natural predators, creatures that hunt by instinct. A Solian warrior is powerful because of genetics, not because of how they were raised." Teo felt something wrong in that statement. He glanced at Minnie. She was staring at the Centaurian diplomat with an expression that looked almost like she wanted to laugh. But she did not speak. She waited. The council moved on to discuss specific creatures. They talked about the hunting success rates of various predators. They discussed whether carnivores or omnivores were more dangerous. They created mathematical models and probability charts. Hours passed. The sun outside the massive windows moved across the sky. Finally, Counselor Zinn, a younger Viridian, asked a simple question. Has anyone considered that training and experience might matter more than we think? The room became quiet. It was clear this was not the standard opinion. Krell turned to face the Viridian. That is a foolish question. An animal is what it is. Instinct is instinct. You cannot change what something is born to be. Teo felt Minnie place her hand on his arm, very gently, very quietly. He looked at her. She was looking at him with an expression that said she had just thought of something important, something that changed everything about this conversation. She leaned very close to him and whispered something. Her voice was so quiet that no one else could hear. But Teo heard every word. His eyes widened slightly. Then he felt his mouth curve into a small, grim smile. Minnie straightened up. She raised her hand. The council fell silent. All eyes turned toward her. A human in this room was unusual. A human asking to speak was even more unusual. Krell looked irritated. You have something to add, Dr. Minnie? Minnie stepped forward slightly. Her voice was calm and clear. I have a question for the council. When you talk about predator hierarchies, about which creatures are most dangerous, are you counting trained ones or wild ones? The room became completely silent. It was the kind of silence that comes before something very important is said. It was the kind of silence that meant everything was about to change. Krell opened his mouth, then closed it again. He did not have an answer. Minnie continued quietly. Because I think you might have forgotten something important. Something that humans understand better than anyone in this room. I think you might have forgotten about what happens when you take a predator and you train it. When you condition it. When you give it purpose and direction. I think you might have forgotten that a trained predator is not the same thing as a wild one at all. Teo felt the moment shift. The entire meeting had changed. The debate about natural hierarchies suddenly seemed incomplete. It seemed like they had all been looking at only half of the answer. Counselor Zinn leaned forward with interest. Explain, he said. Minnie looked at Teo. He nodded slightly. She took a deep breath and spoke the words that would reshape the council's understanding of danger itself. Humans have been training predators for thousands of years, she said. Wolves became dogs. Wild horses became war horses, raptors became hunters, and each time we changed them. Not genetically at first, but through training and conditioning, we made them into something different, something more dangerous than they would ever be in nature. Because in nature, a predator follows hunger and instinct, but a trained predator follows purpose. The council members exchanged looks. Krell's face had gone very still. The silence in the council chamber stretched on for what felt like forever. Dr. Minnie stood very still. She could feel the weight of 17 species' attention pressing down on her. Her heart was beating fast, but her voice remained calm and steady. Krell was the first to break the silence. His forearms crossed over his chest in a gesture that looked like anger. This is irrelevant, he said loudly. We are discussing natural predators, animals, not trained servants. The distinction you are making has no place in strategic analysis. But Counselor Zinn raised his hand. The young Viridian's skin was bright with interest, colors flowing across his surface like thoughts made visible. No, he said. I want to hear this. Dr. Minnie, continue. Minnie stepped closer to the large display screen that showed the predator rankings. She pointed to different creatures on the chart. When you say a creature is dangerous, you measure its strength, its speed, its natural weapons. That makes sense if the creature is wild. It makes sense if the creature only follows instinct and hunger. But what happens when you add something else? What happens when you add intelligence, purpose, obedience? She turned to face the council directly. I will give you examples. Earth is not a very dangerous planet compared to some worlds I have studied. We do not have apex predators that are larger or stronger than creatures on other worlds. But humans dominate Earth completely. We are not the fastest. We are not the strongest. So why do we control the entire planet? Vex, the Quillian, tilted his head. The patterns of light on his surface changed. The data suggests humans use tools. They use cooperation. That changes the calculation. Yes, Minnie agreed. But more importantly, humans trained predators. We took wolves, which are social hunters, and we worked with them for thousands of years. We changed their behavior. We made them want to follow human leaders. We made them willing to die to protect humans. We gave them a new purpose. And the result was an animal more dangerous than the wild version because it combined predatory skill with human direction. She clicked a button, and new images appeared on the screen. Pictures of dogs in different jobs. Military dogs, police dogs, search and rescue dogs, guard dogs, fighting dogs. This is one species of predator, seen through the lens of training. Each of these animals is the same species as the wild wolf, but each one is different. Each one is more suited to its purpose than any wild animal could ever be. A Solian representative, one of the warrior-bred species, sat forward with interest. The Solians were tall and muscular, with skin like bronze. You are suggesting that we have overlooked the importance of selective breeding and conditioning. Not overlooked, Min-I said carefully. Underestimated. You included your own warrior castes in your ranking. The Solian warriors are listed as high-level predators because of their genetics and training. But you seem to think that training was a minor factor. That genetics was the main thing. Captain Teo moved forward slightly. With respect, he said in a clear voice, I believe Dr. Min-A is suggesting that training might be more important than genetics. At least, equally important. Krell stood up. He was very tall, and his forearms made him look even more threatening. This is a waste of time. An untrained human is still weak. An untrained wolf is still a wild animal. Training does not change the fundamental nature of a creature. Does it not? Min-A asked. She pulled up more data. A graph appeared showing combat effectiveness. An untrained human soldier has a basic combat capability. A trained human soldier is 300% more effective. With technology and equipment, that number becomes 2,000% more effective. The training did not change the species. The training changed the individual. It changed what that individual was capable of doing. Counselor Zinn stood. I think I understand what she is proposing. If we factor in training, conditioning, and directed purpose, our entire ranking system becomes invalid. More than that, Min-A said. I believe you have all been underestimating each other. Every species in this room understands breeding and training, even if you do not admit it. The Solians breed warriors. The Viridians optimize their offspring. Every civilization selects for traits it values. And when you add that selection to natural predatory ability, you create something far more dangerous than the ranking system accounts for. The council chamber erupted in quiet conversations. Representatives were turning to each other, talking in low voices. Some looked shocked. Some looked angry. A few looked like they were doing calculations in their heads. Captain Teo spoke again. His voice was respectful but firm. On Earth, we call this principle domestication. It applies to any species. Take any predator. Add intelligence, purpose, training, and resources. The result is unpredictable. It is powerful. It is dangerous in ways that pure physical strength alone can never be. Krell laughed, but it was an angry sound. You are trying to make humans seem more dangerous. I will not accept this analysis. It is political maneuvering. Is it? Min-A asked quietly. She looked directly at the Centaurian. Or are you afraid that I have named something you already know? Something that perhaps your own species practices but does not discuss openly? The council chamber became very silent again. Teo could see that some representatives had stopped breathing. This question was too direct. This question crossed a line. Krell sat down. His four arms uncrossed slowly. "This meeting is postponed," he said. His voice was no longer confident. It was careful, controlled. "Dr. Mine, Captain Teo, you will prepare a formal analysis of this theory. The Council will reconvene in 3 cycles." As the representatives began to leave, Counselor Zin approached Teo and Mine. His skin was moving with colors of excitement and curiosity. "That was remarkable," he said. "You have pointed out something we have all been avoiding. The Council will not accept this easily. Some will feel threatened. Some will be angry. But you have asked a question that cannot be unasked now." Mine looked at the Viridian. "Is that good or bad?" she asked. Zin smiled, if a creature without a mouth could smile. "That remains to be seen," he said. "But it is certainly interesting. The galaxy is about to become much more honest with itself. Whether that honesty will lead to peace or conflict, that is a question I cannot answer." Teo and Mine walked together out of the council chamber. Behind them, the massive doors closed with a sound like thunder. They both knew that something important had happened. The game had changed, the rules had changed, and now they would have to live with the consequences of the truth they had revealed. The research chamber was quiet and cool. Walls of glass looked out onto the vast emptiness of space. Dr. Mine stood at a large table, surrounded by data screens and holographic displays. Information floated in the air around her, numbers and charts and graphs. 3 cycles had passed since the council meeting, 3 cycles of work without rest. Beside her stood Hyun-Soo, another human researcher who had come from Earth to help. He was young, with serious eyes and hands that moved quickly across the keyboards. Together, they had compiled thousands of pieces of information. They had studied every species' history. They had looked at breeding records that were public. They had analyzed military strategies. They had built models of predatory behavior. And now the council was coming to hear what they had discovered. Captain Teo stood to the side, watching the work. He had helped organize the presentation, but the real work was Min-ai and Hyun-Soo's. He was proud of them. They had taken an idea from a whispered question and turned it into science. The council representatives filed in slowly. Some looked interested. Some looked angry. Krell stood at the back, his forearms still and his expression very hard to read. Counselor Zin entered with colors flowing rapidly across his skin. The Solian warrior came with armed guards. The Viridians brought several assistants. Krell spoke first. "You have 3 hours. Make this fast." Mine nodded. She took a deep breath. Then she began to speak. "For thousands of years, humans did not understand genetics the way we understand it now. But we understood something about creatures. We understood that behavior could be changed. We understood that if you selected animals with certain traits, their children would inherit those traits. We understood domestication." On the screens, images appeared. Pictures of wolves, thousands of years old. Pictures of early dogs, only slightly different from wolves. Pictures showing the gradual change over generations. The wolves were becoming shorter in the snout. Their ears were changing shape. Their colors were becoming more varied. Their size was becoming smaller. "We took wolves," Mine continued, "and we selected the ones that were least aggressive toward humans. We bred those animals together. Their children were less aggressive. We bred those children together. After many generations, something strange happened. The wolves had become dogs. They had changed so much that they were a different kind of animal, but they still had all the hunting skills of wolves. They still had speed and teeth and predatory instinct. But now, they also had something new: loyalty, the desire to work with humans, purpose." Hyun-Soo stepped forward. He pointed to a graph on the screen. "A wild wolf is dangerous. It hunts. It kills. It is unpredictable. A dog, which is the same species, is a working animal. It can be trained to protect humans. It can be trained to hunt specific prey. It can be trained to kill on command. The dog is more dangerous than the wolf because it combines predatory skill with directed purpose. The council members watched silently. Vex was making calculations on a small device. His patterns were flickering. He was thinking hard. Mine continued. This principle applies to all species. If you select animals for traits you want, their children inherit those traits. If you do this for many generations, you create something that is very different from the wild version. You create something that is adapted to your purposes, something that serves you, and something that is, in most cases, more effective than the wild version. She clicked to the next section of the presentation. Now images showed different things. Military animals, horse soldiers, hunting raptors, combat dogs. Creatures that had been selected and trained for specific purposes. Humans have been doing this for thousands of years, Hyun-Soo said. We did it with horses. We took wild horses and we bred them. We selected the strong ones. We selected the brave ones. We selected the ones that would fight. And after many generations, we had war horses. Animals that would charge into battle. Animals that would fight alongside soldiers. These war horses were more dangerous than wild horses. They were stronger. They were braver. They were willing to do things that wild horses would never do. Krell made a sound that might have been disapproval, but he did not interrupt. Mine moved to the next part. The principle becomes more powerful when you add intelligence. Humans are intelligent, so we can use language and training as well as breeding. A dog can learn commands. It can learn to obey. It can learn complex behaviors. This combines genetics with conditioning. The result is an animal that is shaped by both nature and training. She showed pictures of military police dogs. Dogs that could find bombs, dogs that could track criminals, dogs that could attack on command and stop on command. These animals are products of both selective breeding and training. They inherit traits from their parents, but they also learn behaviors from their handlers. The combination is incredibly effective. Counselor Zin leaned forward. Are you suggesting, he asked carefully, that all intelligent species practice this principle, but do not discuss it? Yes, Mine said. I believe you all understand the value of selection and training, but you measure danger using only wild predator data. You ignore the fact that trained predators are far more dangerous. Vex made a sound like wind chimes. The mathematics support this conclusion. If we include training as a variable, the rankings become very different. A Solian warrior, which is a product of thousands of years of selective breeding and cultural conditioning, is not 3 times stronger than a Solian non-warrior. The trained warrior is perhaps 20 times more effective in combat. This seemed to make the council uncomfortable. The Solian representatives in the room looked at each other. Hyun-Soo brought up the final section. It was a calculation, a mathematical model. If we take these principles and apply them to all species equally, he said, if we assume that every species has selected for certain traits over time and trained individuals for military or other purposes, then the danger rankings are completely different from what you calculated before. The screen showed new rankings. The order was nothing like the original list. The largest species were not necessarily the most dangerous. Species that seemed weak in raw power had moved higher because they were intelligent and could be trained effectively. And there is more, Minash said quietly. What happens if a species understands this principle consciously? What happens if they work to optimize it deliberately? What happens if they use genetic modification and technology combined with training and breeding? She paused. We do not have data for that scenario, but we can extrapolate. The danger would increase exponentially. The council was very quiet now. Some members were making notes. Some were looking at each other. Some were looking away. Krell finally spoke. You are suggesting that every advanced species has been doing this, breeding and training military populations, selecting for traits we want. I am not suggesting, Minnie said. I am observing. I am showing you the evidence. Whether you have been doing this is not my question. My question is whether you understand the danger it creates, and whether you are prepared to admit that your ranking system is incomplete. Counselor Zinn stood. The Council will need to discuss these findings. This changes everything we thought we understood about galactic hierarchy and threat assessment. We will reconvene in 2 cycles. You have given us much to think about. As the representatives filed out, Teo noticed that Krell did not look angry anymore. He looked worried. He looked like someone who had just realized that his secrets were no longer secret, that the truth he had avoided speaking was now impossible to ignore. The Strategic Command Center was even larger than the Council Chamber. The walls displayed maps of the galaxy. Glowing lines connected different star systems. Symbols showed fleet positions and resource locations. It was a place where the highest officials of the galactic community made decisions that affected trillions of lives. Captain Teo stood in this room now, but he did not feel proud. He felt the weight of what was happening. The truth that Min-I had revealed was spreading, and it was creating problems. Admiral Cragg was the head of galactic security. He was a Solian, but not a warrior caste. He was something rarer. He was an intellectual Solian, a military strategist who had studied warfare for centuries. He looked at Teo with dark eyes that seemed to see everything. "Your Dr. Minnie has created a situation," Admiral Cragg said. He did not sound angry. He sounded like someone who was trying to solve a very complex problem. "Do you understand what has happened?" Teo nodded. "Every species in the Council is now worried that every other species is ahead of them in the process of selective breeding and military optimization." "Exactly," Cragg said. He turned to look at the holographic map of the galaxy. The old rankings created a certain stability. Everyone knew where they stood. The Centaurians were strong. The Solians had good warriors. The Viridians were peaceful but intelligent. The smaller species survived by being useful or intelligent or diplomatic. Everyone had their place. He gestured at the map. But now, no one is sure. The Centaurians are asking themselves if they have been breeding warriors optimally. The Viridians are wondering if they should have been more aggressive. The smaller species are asking themselves if they are falling behind. Your question created uncertainty. The door opened. Politician Han Ji entered. She was a representative from Earth, sent by the United Nations to support Tai-O and Min-A. She was older than Tai-O, with gray in her hair and the look of someone who had spent a lifetime making difficult decisions. "We have a problem," she said without greeting. "The Council is splitting into factions. Some species want to establish restrictions on breeding and military development. Others want to speed up their own programs before restrictions are put in place. And everyone is suspicious of everyone else." Admiral Cragg nodded. "This is what I was explaining to your captain. Your human scientist has made impossible a comfortable ignorance. Now the question is whether we can create a framework that allows us to live with the truth." Hanji sat down. "What do you propose?" "That depends on what humans want," Cragg said. He looked directly at Teo. "Krell and several others are suggesting that humans should be restricted, that you understand something dangerous, that you should be watched more carefully, that perhaps human access to certain technologies should be limited." Teo felt anger rise in his chest, but he controlled it. "And what do you think, Admiral?" Krog turned back to the map. "I think that restricting humans will not solve the problem. It will only make the problem worse. If humans are restricted, what prevents the Centaurians from doing what you have articulated openly? What prevents the Viridians from beginning secret breeding programs? Restriction creates incentive for secrecy. Secrecy creates danger." He looked at Tai-O and Han Ji. I think the solution is the opposite of what Krell proposes. I think we need honesty. I think we need every species to acknowledge what they are doing, to report their breeding programs, to admit their military selection processes, to be transparent about enhancement projects. Hanji leaned forward. You are proposing that the Council establish what? A registry? A monitoring system? Something like that, Krag said, but not as restriction, as transparency. If every species knows what every other species is doing, then no one has a secret advantage. Everyone is playing by the same rules. The door opened again. A messenger arrived with urgent information. Krag read it, and his expression became even more serious. There is a meeting happening, he said slowly. A secret meeting. Several council members have gathered in an unused section of the station. They are discussing what they call emergency measures. They are discussing accelerated breeding programs and military expansion before any restrictions are put in place. Teo felt cold. This was exactly what they had feared. The truth had created panic. The panic was creating action, and the action was making the galaxy more dangerous, not safer. Politician Hanji stood. We need to stop this. We need to propose an alternative. Before that, Krag said, you need to understand something. You need to understand that every species in this council has suspected the other of doing exactly this. The Centaurians have suspected the Solians. The Viridians have suspected everyone. The Quillians have been calculating possible scenarios for generations. Your question did not create the danger. It revealed a danger that already existed. It made people admit what they already believed to be true. He stood and walked to the map. He pointed to different regions of the galaxy. The Viridians have been optimizing their population for 3,000 years. The Solians have maintained their warrior caste through careful selection for 2,000 years. The Centaurians have their strength breeding program. Even the peaceful species have conditioned their populations toward cooperation and trade. Everyone has been doing this. Everyone knew everyone else was doing it. But everyone was pretending not to know. Hanji looked at Teo. They understood. The galaxy was like a room full of people with weapons hidden under their clothes. Everyone knew everyone else was armed. But as long as no one spoke about it, as long as they all pretended that the weapons did not exist, there could be peace. Until someone asked the question. Until someone made everyone admit the truth. So what do we do? Teo asked. Krag turned to face them. We offer the Council something better than restriction or competition. We offer them a framework where they can all be honest at the same time. We call it the Sapient Rights and Conditioning Accord. It is not a law that forbids these programs. It is an agreement that they will be conducted openly, reported honestly, and overseen by a body made up of representatives from all species. Hanji saw the logic immediately. If everyone agrees to transparency, then no one has a secret advantage, so everyone is equally safe. Correct, Krag said. It is a solution that works only if everyone participates. If anyone cheats, the system collapses. But it is better than the current situation, where everyone is tempted to cheat because they fear others are already cheating. He looked at Teo. But there is a cost. Humans will need to be part of the Oversight Committee. Because humans made this conversation possible, humans will be trusted, which means humans will be watched more carefully than any species. Your Captain Teo will likely be asked to serve on the committee that oversees breeding and military development programs across the galaxy. Teo understood. It was an honor. But it was also a responsibility that would follow him for the rest of his life. When is the vote? He asked. In 3 cycles, Krag said. Before then, you need to convince the Council that this is possible, that species can be honest with each other, that transparency is safer than secrecy. Hanji and Teo looked at each other. They both knew that this was the moment that would determine everything. This was the moment where Earth's place in the galaxy would be decided. This was the moment where humanity would either become a trusted voice in galactic affairs or would become a species that was feared and restricted. The meeting in the empty section of the station continued. Species leaders gathered in secret, but Admiral Cragg had already chosen his side, and his side was the humans. The question now was whether he could convince the rest of the council to choose the same way. The observation deck of Nexus Station looked out into the endless black of space. Stars dotted the darkness like tiny lights in an enormous room. Captain Teo stood at the window, watching those stars. He had always found this view peaceful, but tonight there was no peace in him. Dr. Minnie came to stand beside him. She did not speak at first. She just looked out at the stars with him. She understood what he was feeling. They had created this situation together. "Do you think we made a mistake?" she asked finally. Teo was quiet for a long time. "I think we asked a question that needed to be asked, but I also think we did not understand the cost of asking it." He turned to look at her. "Do you understand what is happening to us right now? Do you understand what it means that we revealed this truth?" "Yes," Minnie said quietly. "We made ourselves targets. Every species is now wondering if humans understand something dangerous. Every species is watching us to see what we do next. We are being evaluated under the same framework we created." Teo nodded. "By revealing that trained predators are more dangerous than wild ones, we told the galaxy that humans understand the principle better than anyone. We proved it by being honest about it. And now everyone is trying to figure out what that means. Are we planning to train predators? Are we planning to breed super soldiers? Are we planning to use our understanding of training to dominate the galaxy?" "And the truth is," Minnie said, "we are not planning any of those things. But no one will believe us, because we have shown that we understand the principle so well that we can explain it to others." The observation deck door opened. A young Viridian entered. It was one of Counselor Zin's assistants. The alien's skin was moving with troubled colors. "Dr. Minnie, Captain Teo," the Viridian said. "Counselor Zin requests that you meet with him, privately, in his quarters. It is important and confidential." Teo and Minnie exchanged looks. They followed the Viridian through the corridors of the station. Other species passed them in the hallways. Some stared, some whispered. Counselor Zin's quarters were comfortable and filled with plants. The Viridian's skin colors shifted to a shade that meant concern mixed with friendship. He gestured for them to sit. "I need to tell you something," he said without preamble. "Something that your question has revealed. Something that the elder species have been hiding from the younger ones." He paused, and the colors on his skin became darker, more serious. "The Viridians have been optimizing our population for genetic traits for 3,000 years, he said. "We have a breeding program that is more advanced than anything in the galaxy. We select for intelligence, for creativity, for certain physical traits. We have done this so carefully and for so long that most younger Viridians do not even realize it is happening. They think they are simply choosing their mates for love. But our society is designed so that natural love and genetic optimization happen together." Minnie realized what he was saying. "You are confessing that you have been doing exactly what I described." "Yes," Zin said. "And I am not the only species to do so. The Solians have their warrior breeding program. The Centaurians have been selecting for strength and aggression for thousands of years. The Quillians have been mathematically optimizing their population since they developed the technology to understand genetics. The so-called peaceful species have been conditioning their populations toward cooperation and low aggression." He looked at them with colors of frustration and fear. "And now, because you have named this principle, every species knows that every other species knows. The comfortable ignorance is gone. And in its place is panic. Tayo leaned forward. What does that panic mean? What are they doing? They are accelerating their programs, Zin said. The species that have been moving slowly are now moving fast. They fear being left behind. The species that have been hiding their programs are now expanding them. They fear that hiding is no longer safe. And the young species, the ones who have not developed these programs yet, are starting to ask whether they should. Minnie felt her stomach tighten. We did this. We caused this. No, Zin said, and his colors shifted to a shade that meant hope mixed with sadness. The situation was always like this. The danger was always present. The panic was always waiting. You simply turned on a light. And now everyone can see what was always there in the darkness. He stood and walked to a large window. His own quarters had a view of the galaxy. I brought you here to tell you something else, to warn you. The Council is going to vote on a proposal. The proposal is that humans should be restricted, that you understand something dangerous and therefore you must be watched. Your technology development might be limited. Your military might be monitored. Your breeding programs might be regulated more strictly than any other species. Tayo felt anger rise in him. That is not fair. We have not done anything wrong. No, Zin agreed. You have not. But that is not the point. The point is fear, and fear does not care about fairness. The Viridian turned back to face them. However, Admiral Cragg has proposed something different. A transparency accord, a way for all species to be honest about what they are doing. And I believe it can pass. But it requires your support. It requires humans to be willing to be scrutinized even more closely than other species. It requires you to be transparent about everything, so that you can show that you have nothing to hide. Minnie looked at Tayo. She could see in his face that he understood the irony. They had asked a question about training predators. Now they were being trained themselves, being shaped by fear and suspicion into the role the Council needed them to play. If we agree to this, Tayo said slowly, we will be watched for the rest of our lives. All humans who come to the galactic community will be watched. We will have less freedom than other species. Yes, Zin said, but you will have something else. You will have the respect of a galaxy that knows you told the truth when truth was dangerous. You will be the species that chose transparency when you could have chosen hiding. He paused. And perhaps, if you are successful, if the Transparency Accord actually works and creates safety instead of more suspicion, then eventually other species will be allowed the same freedom. But humans will have to go first. Humans will have to prove that it is possible. After they left Zin's quarters, Minnie and Tayo walked through the corridors of the station. They moved slowly, not talking, just thinking. We have a choice, Minnie said finally. We can refuse. We can argue that it is not fair to restrict humans. We can go back to Earth and let someone else deal with this situation. Can we? Tayo asked. Can we really? Or is choosing to be transparent the only thing that makes sense now? Min-I did not answer. She did not need to. They both knew what the right choice was. The same choice they had made when Min-I asked her question in the council chamber. The choice to be honest even when honesty was painful. In the empty corridors of Nexus Station, far away from Earth and everything familiar, two humans understood something that most species took centuries to learn. Sometimes the cost of truth was high, but the cost of lies was higher.